live. Welcome back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. It is another NWA Spotlight. This time, the file will not corrupt, hopefully, like it did with Holly Hood, Haley
Uh-oh.
J. Yeah, uh-oh.
Probably did it on purpose. She's a hoodlum.
Oh no! But to be fair, I could have done because it was such a great conversation with Haley that I probably could have done it as a joke, as a thing to get her back on. But no, this will work first time. First things first. Let me just introduce my NWA tag team partner from Scotland. After her meetings with JR the last couple of days, it's Miss Fiona Lochran. Good evening, Fee.
Good evening, my love. How are you?
Not too bad. Has it been half an hour since we last done a podcast
Not
together?
even.
Not even half an hour since we last watched or reviewed Looks That Kill, part one of the NWA series that we're just hitting on X. Go and check that out on the NWA X app. Oh, I was going to say app, NWA X page, and you better see all of that and all the weekly episodes of Power plus anything else that they want to put on. But now let's get to our guest, and it is a man that holds many hats in NWA right now. He does a wrestler. He also does a lot of stuff backstage in the NWA. He's one half of Looks That Kill. Little bit enough. It's Mr. Bryan Idol. Hi, mate. How you doing?
Very good, thank you. And I'd like to point out, by the way, I had nothing to do with the naming of the Looks That Kill, the series in Dothan. That was, I think it was a nod of appreciation from the people in the company because I am the one who said, "Hey, let's go to Dothan in the first place." And as you know, our first show there had like 1,730 something people. So everybody was pretty pumped about it. So in the process of leading up to that, we knew we were going to have a huge show. So I think they were like, "Hey, let's name the next one Looks Like Kill." Because, it was like, you're the guy who put it here. So very cool. It was a good compliment. Uh,
That's a
it
nice
was,
little nod. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, it all started out good. Then I ended up on the floor. So Looks Like
We
Kill.
might touch on that in a minute. We may touch on that in a minute. One of the things about Looks That Kill this year was that it's going to be the first ever women's cage match that's been done, which is incredible. Me and Fee, if you listen to our podcast, we can't talk about the women's division enough in the NWA.
Love it.
I say every time we have someone on from the NWA, I would put that division up against any women's division in any company, and it would be so on par with it. But how exciting is it to have had that match with obviously Tiffany Nieves and Mark Over in there? That obviously they absolutely kill it when we watch it in a few weeks. But must have been great to be like having the first ever women's cage match in Dolphin, Alabama.
Yeah, it was, I think it's one of those things. The funniest part is, every company's going to hype something that they have, or like even the fans will jump onto something that's unique. And this one, to me, if I'm being honest, felt like people weren't really like, they're like, all right, yeah, cool, whatever. It wasn't like anybody making this really big deal about it. But I think the amazing part is watch the match and tell me if it doesn't blow your mind. So totally couldn't have been any happier. And it just looks like one of those things where, like, yeah, some people made, and again, maybe I'm looking at it from a negative perspective, but some people made a little bit of noise about it, but then other people just kind of were like, whatever, it's a gimmick. It 110% delivers. And I dare say, contained in that match is the best highlight in the NWA for probably the next 20 years. So
Ooh,
Mm.
maybe something to look
okay.
forward to there. But yeah, I mean, people still don't talk about it enough, and that's the funny part. Like they don't. I mean, obviously they haven't seen it air, so there's the bulk of the people haven't seen it, but even the people that did see it, it's I don't know. They were going nuts about it, but it didn't. Maybe it's a good thing. It just hasn't. Some of those still photos or video clips haven't made the rounds, and that's kind of a good thing because I think when NWA starts actively pushing it, like I said, you'll probably have the marquee clip for the next X amount of years for real. It's mind blowing. So
Mm.
it's well worth the anticipation, I guess is what I'm saying to you guys.
Well, can't wait to see
Definitely
it.
one we're looking forward to.
Yeah, definitely. So we're looking forward to it. But you mentioned a good point there, Brian, because one of the things that I obviously because we see these things on a delay, it gets taped and then it gets sort of 6, 7 weeks before we get to see it. I don't see spoilers online, which I absolutely love that fact. And I don't know why they don't post it on socials or anything like that, but it's such a good thing though, because for
You
us,
wanna you wanna know the real inside take on this?
go on,
Go
go.
for it.
This is how I get myself in trouble. So my real inside take on this is, first of all, the media that covers us, we always ask them not to post.
Mm.
And it's happened one or two times, and I had to quickly pull it down. And like, hey, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just in the habit of thinking it's like a pay-per-view, so I put it up because it's essentially still, you know what I mean? If those tapings essentially have the pay-per-view feel, so I understand the mindset of when a writer wants to pump out those results, but we politely remind them not to. Um, the other part is I think it speaks to our fan base, and if I'm going real insider here, you know, the bulk of our fan base is not the Mark fan base, which I think is refreshing and amazing because I don't think any of us really look on X to like vanity search or like whatever, like see whatever BS, because ultimately, and I mean we've seen it. You can pick any company. I mean, you see what happens. The fans, there for every fan that's praising it, there's 10 more that are taking a dump on it. So
Mm.
I think it's refreshing and nice to not have to sweat, the pinky in the air fan that wants to take a crap all over everything, and then by saying, "Oh, these were the results of this. What were they thinking?" Blah blah blah. So it's cool for the fans like you guys who are sitting there waiting to see it, and it doesn't get ruined because unfortunately, we're taping for TV or X in this case, but ultimately TV. So it's a good thing. It's somehow we're surviving or skating under the current modern day mechanism of like somebody runs a match somewhere and you see it 5 minutes later on the internet. So we've been very lucky with that. I consider it a blessing.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I also, here's my personal I guess diss on all that. It also proves to me that Smart Mark fans are about 1/100th of what people actually think they are, because for every one person that's a Smart Mark fan, he has 10 to 50 fake profiles posting. So just something I've noticed, I mean, over the years, and I totally stand by it. And even Tony Khan got quoted one time saying he ran analytics on it and it was the same thing. So I mean, there's people, well, in the business that have actually commented on it. And I think it's a real thing, but we're going way off subject here. This is not a good PR move, but whatever.
No, I love the fact that there's never anything online because obviously Looks That Kill was 2 months ago almost now, and there's nothing that's come out.
Which
So
is,
for
yeah,
us,
unless I mean, you got to be hardcore searching for it. So
yeah,
unless you're trying to find it, yeah, it's not beating you over the head, which is awesome. You know,
yeah, it's great. It's from our point of view, or from my point of view, it's great. The only frustrating part is having to wait 2 months to see
of
it.
course, of
Yeah,
course.
that is. But nevertheless, we get to see it anyway, which is really, really good. Brian, from the NWA standpoint, 2025 for me, I mean, I always say this as well, that Fee was the one that introduced me to it. Fee, come on. We interviewed Fee for the podcast good nearly 2 years ago when we first started, and then you started watching, and you were posting all the time about it. And I always tell the story that I thought it was like the old end when Fee used to post for it. I messaged her saying like, "Is
What
this
are you
the end?"
watching these old tapes for?
Yeah, exactly that. That's exactly. Is that the NWA of like the 80s? And like she was like, no, this is a thing. Like it's a
It's
program
the
and
real one.
yeah,
And it's
exactly.
funny because on first glance, sometimes you catch the right scene and you're like, what are you talking about? This is straight out of like back in time. But no, it's real. And we do that aesthetic on purpose. We're aware of it. That's
I
the fun
love it.
part. Yeah.
I,
And it's
I
like,
love the TV studio vibe. Like that's old school for me, and there's something about that that just hits home and that I can resonate with.
I 100% agree. And it's the kind of thing where at first I wouldn't say it was my cup of tea or I ever cared about any of that. Like, and I had seen it when I was a kid. And to me as a kid, I was like, it doesn't look like WWF. But now being in it and then watching it and then going back and seeing the history of it, I really appreciate that aesthetic and what we're doing. And like, I think about it through the eyes of a child seeing that. And it's a unique change. And again, it's not going to appeal to everybody. So we've definitely, we're starting to we're conscious of that, and we're thinking, more globally, but we still want to keep the aesthetic and the integrity of the old feel because that's what makes us special. So it's kind of cool. It's like going to a 50s diner, right? Like you don't go to a 50s diner to have freeze dried ice cream, or maybe you do. I don't know what they did kind of have that back in the, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? You're not
Yeah.
trying to have the most space age food in a 50s diner. You're trying to have a burger and an old school milkshake is what I'm getting at.
Mm.
And so we try to maintain that as much as we can, you know, 'cause you can't do it over the top because then, you know, it's weird. Uh, but it's definitely something that I've come to appreciate, and I think it's worth preserving. So I'm glad, you know, I'm glad that you guys like it and you guys get it. Uh, and I think when done right, like for instance, it did air, so I'll talk about it. I don't know if you saw, but there was the promo leading up to Hard Times where it's me and
Yes.
Thrill Billy, right?
Yeah.
That
And
aired last
that,
week, yeah.
yep, and that promo would simply be one of my favorite promos of all time just because of the aesthetic. I can
Mhm.
Mm.
honestly say in 25 years of wrestling, I've never filmed a promo that looked like that. Like the way it had that old school
Yeah.
face to face look.
Yeah.
And so I was really, really proud to be a part of it. And it was just, it goes right up in my pile of top promos I've ever done because just the whole aesthetic. And like I said, when you see it done right like that, you're like, okay, that's magic. So then it's find the balance of like who can pull that off, you know, how's the best way to present each person. But when it done right, that's the key. It's really special.
We were saying,
Thank
go on,
Oh,
Fee.
I was going to say, I think that's something that Adam and I kind of see quite often. The promo with Kyle, particularly that one from last week with you and Phil Billy, it was very, very intense without having too many kind of flowery add-on bits. It literally was you guys on the screen with Kyle back and forward. And I love that. Like, I don't need all the bells and whistles and stuff like that. If you can draw me in just with two people on screen talking, then you've won me over.
Right. And the cherry on top is you got three people that don't like each other there. So so I mean that's the magic of it, right? That when that comes together and you really know the deal, you know, that creates magic. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. For me, that was like almost going in a time warp and like seeing that. And I'm like, oh, this is like so awesome to be able to stand up in this and stand out. So yeah, I mean, that's what it's meant to be. You know, when
Yeah.
we say like how it's meant to be, that's what we're talking about. I'm not saying I'm the only one. I'm just saying if you ask me in particular about that one comes to mind because I was in it, and that's how it's meant to be. And so that's what we're going for, and then we just try to bridge the gap to the modern era and try to find ways to fit in within that without totally because like look, if we wanted to, what do you think? We can't have 52 video screens and pyro and all these things. We can. It's just like it's not our bag. Like
Yeah.
we're doing this a certain way and we want to do this a certain way. And we think there's a value in it, and there's a nostalgia aspect, and also an appealing to certain type of person where they just it registers differently to them as what else is out there. So love in that aspect, I've come to really fall in love with that over just straight up TV what you're constantly hit with on TV when it comes to wrestling. So cool change and something I like I said really really appreciate it. I'll stop talking.
No, that's fine. I
That's all
just think it's
right.
like a unique selling point. Like you watch every other, you mentioned WWE and AEW and stuff, and it's generally the same. AEW maybe appeals more to maybe an indie crowd because of they've got a lot of great wrestling, but perhaps not the storyline aspect. WWE has a lot of entertainment in their stuff. But what I like about NWA and that particular promo from last week, it took me back to like a Flair and Dusty moment between you two. But it also added a big fight feel to a match that hasn't even got a title involved. There's, as you mentioned, the animosity there. You had that stare off to end it. And like for me, that it just makes me now want to get to that match that looks that killed because of that promo itself. But additionally to that, NWA's unique selling point for me is I can watch it, and when like Damage hits a drop kick and gets the 1, 2, 3, it's incredible because you don't see that nowadays.
Right, because it's gone away from that's what I'm saying. But where I guess the beat you over the head way I would say it is like since when has wrestling changed and when is it not okay to be like a sweaty long-haired tough guy where like you know what I mean where like when somebody punches you dead in the face like that's not believable that that's the end of the match.
Mm.
So it's like when you're living in that world and it almost corrects itself, right? Because One thing about the NWA on our roster is they're huge. I'm certainly not the biggest guy on the roster. I'm 6'3", 230 pounds, legitimately. I'll step on a height and weight scale and I'll show you. I'm 6'3", 230 pounds, and that's my real height and weight. And with shoes on anyway. So a little under six, a little under 6'3" when I got the shoes on, but not a lot. I don't
Six,
put lifts in
six,
my
two and
shoes.
a
I'm just
half.
saying. I'm saying I don't put lifts in my shoes or anything, but I'm just being deadly honest. 6'3" with shoes on, 230 pounds as I stand right now. And I am by far from the biggest guy on that roster. So we are a roster of extremely large dudes. So it's like when you factor that in, it like almost corrects itself. It's like, oh yeah, sure. When you're talking about two guys that are 180 pounds, maybe it takes more than a drop kick.
Yeah.
But like, man, when we hit each other in the face, bones break. So case in point. So I mean, it's real. It's that aspect is a lot more prevalent in the NWA, which I love. Like, again, everybody's preference, but and I'm not just saying it because I looked the part because I didn't always. And I'm saying I used to be a smaller dude. It took a lot of working out and a very big change in daily lifestyle to get up to this size and maintain, and also just getting older, I guess helps. But regardless, when I started in wrestling, I was 180 pounds, if that, and the same height. So I was skinny. I was basically a cruiserweight. I remember even doing other feds in 2019 and fans online saying, he's built like a big cruiserweight. And I don't think I get mistaken for a cruiserweight much anymore, but I do have a lean build. But still, point is, I think it's just my preference, and luckily the what's prevalent in the company is big, large men. And if we punch you in the face, that's probably all we got to do. So a drop kick will knock you off this planet, and we go from there. So I think it's just so cool. Like, send me back to those days of like, you know what I mean? I want my cardboard cut out of my sweaty, chiseled body at the Walmart, and kids walk by and buy the action figure there. That's what I feel like that's what the world needs more of these days. We have all the other, we've seen for the last 10, 15, 20 years, the shift in that. So we got that flavor. Now that's kind of getting redundant. So it's like, hey, bring it back the other way. Just like how clothes sometimes, bell bottoms come back in style. Right now, mom jeans are a thing. So that, you know what I'm saying? Maybe not over there, but I don't know if you guys know here. Mom jeans are a thing now.
Oh, sure.
So, and you see a lot of good looking girls wearing these high waisted mom jeans, and you're like, I don't think they look particularly great, but I think what it speaks to is the need of like, hey, we've done the low cut,
Yeah.
the tight butts. We've done that all. So hey, let's cover it back up. Let's pull them back up. It's just different again, right? So I think we're right on time with this, and I love that. And like for me, I'm like, well, that's the style I prefer. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm.
I got long hair. That's like saying like, would you rather be in the era of emo versus '80s metal? I'm like, give me the '80s rock. I
Oh,
want
absolutely.
so, but
100%.
there's a million people who would be like, "What are you crazy? Give me the Fallout Boy haircut and the whiny voice, and that's cool." Like I like My Chemical Romance, but do I like them as much as Motley Crue? I don't think so. Or Bon Jovi, you know what I'm saying? So it's all preference, but it's nice to see. It seemed like the turn is coming to favor this era, this style for this era. So, I mean, that's the way we feel anyway. Maybe we're crazy, but I love that.
Oh,
You
that's
say, go on,
cool.
Fee.
So no, I'm just going to say, obviously, you debuted with NWA on NWA USA, I think it was, way back in 2022.
I think it
But you
was, yeah.
came in as a different character. So
Right.
talk to me about the shift from Mercurial to Brian as we know you now.
Okay. So obviously when I was working with other companies, and I always say other companies, I've done naming companies because like I don't want to name drop. But I was in another prominent brand, and Bryan Idol was established, and I've been established as that since I don't know, probably 2017. Uh, when I first spoke with Billy, he was like, I get it. Like, I get your character. It's like, it's kind of you because it is kind of really me. Like, there's the music thing, there's the male model thing, there's I did romance novel covers and all this silly stuff, been in movies, TV, blah, 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 blah. So, all that really is, me, the entertainer at the core. But we were, and I credit Billy, he was like, what kind of different spin can we just put on this that's like more on the nose? Like, what would really like just make people shake their head and be like, what is the deal? So I was like, well, sometimes like in public when people just want to kind of like bust my chops or like make me feel awkward. I'll get it all the time. I could be at the grocery store. Somebody's like, "Hey, Fabio, watch out!"
I
Right? Or
was
like,
gonna,
"Hey, look at
yeah.
Fabio over there!" Right? So, so I was like, why don't we maybe lean into that? And then he came up with a name where he was like, yeah, he's like, you know what, make yourself like Italian, which is actually, my mother's from Italy. So I was totally down with that. And he was like, can you do? So all I did was imitate every relative or family friend that ever come over. They're always like, hello, like, it's a nice to see you, you know, I'm a friend of your grandpa, and like, so you get that. And so it was very I'm sorry, getting a spam call because I didn't put it on standby.
That's all
Uh they want to tell me that my car's warranty
Just
is
run out.
calling trying to reach you about your extended warranty. There's the there's the button, right? Okay, there you go, DND. We should be good. Hopefully I didn't hang up on you. All right, I'm back, right? All good.
All
Yep, all
good.
Um
good.
so like I said, the accent kind of came easy, the character kind of came easy, and Billy loved that. So we went in that direction, and I thought that was a good spin to bring me in and see where it grows to. And I mean, obviously, I debuted at a high level. I mean, my first opponent there is Sam Shaw.
Yeah.
And, I dare say it was a good debut for me. And the humor was easily caught right away as we cut, the promo, which came up with the spontaneous line where I said, and it wasn't planned, it was all spontaneous. And I said, you made me make the ugly face, and nobody makes me make an ugly face. And like everybody loved that. So that was going on for a while. And, so everybody kind of like bit into that and liked it. And I just think ultimately, as the character started to organically grow, and then at the same time, you go from who I'm in the ring with and what the character's doing, and it just kind of started to, I don't know, not maybe reach its peak, but just reach its ceiling, where you're like, okay, there's only so much you can do with this, where it's kind of always a comedy thing and whatever, which everyone's totally okay with. I was totally okay with it too. But I think just for whatever reason, I think everybody sees, and I think Carneyland gave way to that. There's a lot more to go with me. Don't judge me from my stuttering podcast here, but there's a higher ceiling with Bryan Idol. And I think as you start to see, like as evidence last week, that's the first time Bryan Idol ever got a face to face on Power. Like, it's not the podium anymore, but it's the promo segment. So I've never gotten one of those like that. So that's the first time, and that's what you get. So I think everybody sees, hey, Bryan Idol himself is plenty interesting, and I mean, it is. It's not a character; it's me. And there's just a higher ceiling. So that's the evolution of that. And then, I mean, I won't tap into the other side of it. I don't want to. I don't want to give things away, but yeah, there's a higher ceiling. So I just shut up and say that for the fifth time.
It's interesting. Going back to NWA briefly, about one of the things that I've liked that they've incorporated over the last year or so is the territories. So going way off on a tangent from Bryan Idol to Mercurio to back to territories. But we've seen so many new names, and some of them have been sort of ID'd by another company, shall we say?
Yeah. Yep.
In that. But the thing I love about it is they seem to be building for the future with these territories like Crossfire, NWA Chicago, and Joe Kazana Promotions, and all those. But it's great to see that, and we also get to see little fluctuates of it. We saw obviously done the series last year when you went back to the territories for the Power Tapers. We got to see new names, and Tyler Franks I think was on recently.
Yep.
Is it
Yep.
really important that the NWA did that because it actually helps mold people into the future NWA stars?
Well, again, if you watch Carneyland, Billy credits me with being instrumental in the territory setup.
Mhm. Yeah.
And you mentioned the ID program, and I gotta tell you, believe me, I'm tied to all that as well initially. Um, these are ideas that I've had from my understanding of wrestling based on history. And in my mind, the only true way you can develop the next great talent is finding people that have cut their teeth already and have an understanding of what it takes to have a lifetime career in this business. Because it's very few and far between the people that just come on the scene, out of a school and never wrestled in other feds and they go on to be these mega stars. It's few and far between. The ultimate ones that do this are either generational or they've cut their teeth on hitting the streets for years and years and years. They learn what works, what doesn't. They hone their craft. So think in this day and age, you have to try to help facilitate that vehicle. And, the indies are, whether anyone admits it or not, are struggling constantly and always have been because there's no real regulation on who's running what.
Yeah.
So, and necessarily some plan. Some kind of guy just shows up with, money to burn and he's running 10 shows and then he's gone. The shows were awesome. Then he's gone. You never see him again. That Fed's gone. Or there's Feds that like are just filled with people that they're literally pulling off the street, out of bars and people's girlfriends and whatever. The quality's so low and it's like so backwoods. And every city and every country has those. And that's the thing. The scope of wrestling is so unregulated in that regard, and it's very renegade, which is kind of cool in theory. But again, what the territory system tries to ensure is like, hey, we're picking places that are worthy of support. And we're like, okay, how can we help support you at the same time? How can we help develop some of the talent we already have? And at the same time, how can we find new talent and bring them along with us? So it's really all intermixed like that. And that's the goal. So any one of those things that I mentioned is the payoff of what we're doing. And it's already worked tremendously. Um, there's a lot of people on that roster in the last 2 years that popped up out of this system. And again, as you said, some even got snatched up to other places with big money in hand. And that's a compliment to us, not nobody's freaking out about it because when you create the right system and the right pipeline, it's very probable that it's going to keep refreshing itself. It's like fish in the river, right? In an ideal place, they're going to keep recreating. It doesn't mean you can't fish in that pond or lake. They're going to come back because the conditions are ideal for it.
Yeah.
And as long as you don't abuse it, there's going to be new fish. And that sounds ridiculous to say, like, 'cause I always give examples, but I'm just trying to clarify because I feel like otherwise no one understands what the heck I'm talking about. Um, but that's how we view it, and it's very important to me, having come up through, I've 100% come up through the independent wrestling scene for a lot of years. And I know that's what separates me from a lot of flash in the pan people, because there's definitely people that have done, cooler things or seem like brighter prospects, but they're not galvanized always. And it's kind of like it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? So
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of sprinters come and you're like, whoa, look at that guy. And then like, wait, where'd he go? I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Totally.
but and if you really look at the backbone of the wrestling industry, it's marathoners. So if it helps facilitate and build that mindset, it's probably the right way to go. So that's always been my idea for a long time. And like I said, I instituted it in other companies and we're really doing it the best I've seen now. And it almost feels like people kind of panic, copy us, which is even better, which I love.
What I love about it is we get to see new talent that we don't get to see. Like, so there's
Right.
names pop up all the time on
Right.
shows, and we're like, oh, who's that? And you see them, you think, oh, I like them. So then we'll go off and look at other
There you
things. So
go.
now I'll go and watch JCP every now and again, or I'll go and watch
Exponential. Yeah.
Crossfire Show, or I'll go and watch TSW or Dog Pound. And then it opens up this whole new world of talent that
Right.
we wouldn't otherwise get the chance to see. So I know sometimes as a viewer, sometimes it maybe feels a little bit like a revolving door of talent for us because someone will come in and then we don't see them for ages,
Yeah. Like,
ages and
this
ages
guy. Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
But it gives us the chance to go, right, do you know what? I'm going to go and check out this promotion now because I know that's their promotion. So I suppose it's a win-win for the viewers and it's a win for the talent themselves because they're getting more eyes on them.
Yeah, I've yet to see many negatives come out of it. again, there's a balance there. So a lot of things have to fall into place correctly. A lot of things got to be done right. But when you're dealing with the right people, and here's something somebody brought up, because I always like do these interviews thinking people are just trying to scan me for inside information or sound bites. Um, I've seen people online ask or mention like, how come you're only picking territories with talent that's affiliated with the NWA? Not necessarily true. Um, like some of the new territories coming out, they don't have anything to do with NWA yet. And if it seemed that was the case, well, it's just common sense. If you were looking to start something, wouldn't you look at the people you know first? You'd look in the places you
Yeah,
know, right? Like if I said,
absolutely.
if I said I need to go buy wood for my house, I would go start looking at Home Depot first because it's recognized for having that. So
Mhm.
it's something I'm familiar with. So yeah, we went to the familiar places first, and some of them were very worthy. So we've now started branching out past that. We've checked out our in-house, and now we're like, okay, let's look outside. So we've already begun doing that, and like I said, we have one or two already, but there's going to be more that are popping up very soon. And again, that's just the way it goes. So I wouldn't want anybody to think this is like some stupid, corny, like inside job where it's like, oh, come on, they're just repackaging like their lesser garbage and just going with like, someone's, EC3's got a Fed. We're gonna just go in there and take his garbage to make him happy and like blah blah blah. It's not the case, dude. Like those guys are working hard. They're
Yeah.
awesome. And like, so that said, we're recognizing that, and of course we recognize that first because it's right in front of our face. But again, we're branching out past that, and we want to find more of that. So we welcome everyone and anyone that's interested in. And I get a lot of messages about people inquiring. Like we have an actual a sheet to fill out that's like, hey, I want to be a territory. Okay, here's your list of questions. And then we're gonna take it amongst us, and we're gonna evaluate and see what we see. But in no instance are we ever shunning anyone or like closing the door on anything. I spend all day exploring all those avenues. Sometimes I go there, like sometimes I get on a plane and I'm like, I want to go see this for myself. Let's see. So it's fun too. It's a fun process. And I just want to stress it's open to everyone. And the goals that we've set are the real things, and the things that you've noticed are the real outcomes. So it's all good stuff.
Do you think you can see it branching out overseas then? So it's not just
Uh,
going to be domestic wise. You think you can see it coming to Europe or going to Australia or going to Asia or whatever? Obviously, there used to be an NWA UK championship belt many moons ago. Is that something that you're potentially looking at?
Already had people reach out, and there's already things being considered. So as far as the timeline, I can't give it because one thing that we're careful not to do, and I'm going to credit the boss man, Billy Corgan. One thing I've learned, if you were like, what is the thing you've learned the most from being in the NWA and all your years of wrestling and all this? The word would be patience. He has taught me the value of being patient and what that necessarily prevents, mistake wise, and what the payoff is benefits wise when you think like that. And so we've had those conversations. We're exploring those avenues, and you're just kind of waiting. It's the Cinderella story, right? You're waiting for the shoe to fit. So when it does, we'll have it, and we're totally interested. We are definitely thinking globally, and I don't think. And again, I always think from a naysayer criticism point of view. I don't think we're overstepping our boundaries or capabilities because don't forget we did a huge tour in Australia.
Yeah.
We've been around, so we know, and that's recent history. Mexico, this, that. We've been around, so we know what we're capable of company wise and what our scope is. And it's almost like sometimes I guess like sometimes with talent, like from overseas, it's like you want to use them so bad, but there's so many hurdles. And I tell people when they ask me, I'm like, hey, just be patient because like things always change. And I don't mean like I'm not talking about like, oh, the roster opens up, things always change like that corny stuff. I'm saying like you don't know where we're going to be or what we're going to be doing. And that might be when you walk in the door and you make the impact and you know what I mean? And you become part of the whole thing. So it's just a game, it's a waiting game. And it's just we can only, the fog can only spread out so fast. It's tempered. So that's that's the plan on that. So we have it in there. Trust me, I would love to do it all tomorrow, but in time, I think you will. And I
As
think, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, as we always say here, we'll just watch this space and see what happens.
That's what you got to do. And you know, there's a lot of aspects all around. I want to say that this company can step up and we can grow in a lot of different, and we can improve a lot of things we're doing. It just takes time, right? And then it's like I said, the more big mouth person or people or group of people, more impulsive, would try to just turn every fire on the oven at once and throw every pan on there and be like, get them cooking. It doesn't matter. We got to make a big impression. And it's like, yeah, but quality over quantity. And
Yeah.
so it takes time, and we see the things, we believe me, we see a lot of stuff that we're not doing to the best of our ability, and we're like, hey, let's turn our focus on that for a second and start trying to turn it up and fix it. And it turns out there's a lot there's a lot of things that go into running a proper company on a national and international level when dealing with TV and all those things that go into it. So it's just a massive undertaking to do it properly without wasting $1 billion, because there's no art in that. There's no art in just saying, hey, Billy Corgan, open up your bank vault and dump all this money into this and be a big shot. Like there's no soul in that. So it's just like any business, you pick the scale of where you're starting. If you're a mom and pop and you're like, okay, I want to have a restaurant and I want to make, delicious spaghetti, you're going to start out making delicious spaghetti. And then once that gets established, you'll be like, okay, we can maybe move into some other things now. Right now, here comes the steak sandwich. Here comes this, right? So that's basically what we're doing as a company. And we're totally cool with that. And it's not the same for others. And everybody else wants to have this big buzz and these big moments. And they're like, now's the time. We're always thinking about what's next, what's later. How do we not, blow our wad and waste it? And like I said, I'm totally free sharing that mindset, because I think if people understood that, they would appreciate maybe differently what we're doing and say, like, hey, there's a long-term plan here. And Billy said all this, but I think it just goes by the wayside sometimes when people have opinions and they just forget, and like, hey, the guy told you the plan. The guy told you what's going on. So, I mean, I just love what we're doing, and I think we're growing the way we need to, and I can't wait till we're doing more international stuff, and I'm sure you guys can either.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I may work for a wrestling company that might be interested in coming on
Yeah.
board. Hey, my
Hey,
title's there, so you can have my title as well. That would be,
love it.
we can have it.
Love it.
But speaking of the UK, Brian, as we start to wrap up a little bit here, you're coming over to the UK with Natalia
Yes.
Markova next
Yep.
next month, I believe. We were just talking before. You're coming March the 9th. You're in Colchester in Essex, I believe, which is right on basically my neck of the woods for Clash in Colchester, I believe it's called, for SOS Wrestling. But where else are you going to be in the UK coming up?
Um, don't quote me date wise, because like
No, no, no,
they're
no.
all over the place. I'm sorry, and I don't mean this as a slight to the other companies. If you asked me 10 dates for 10 shows right now, I couldn't tell you. I do know I'm coming to PCW.
Yep.
They're having a
That's
great
always a
tournament.
good time.
Yeah, they're having a great tournament, and from what I hear, I don't even know if they announced the big surprise name
Austin
yet.
Aries is there, right?
He's one of them, yeah. So I mean, like that's pretty huge. I've never stepped in the ring with him. I do know him, and I did once. I did once see his band play. His band played a gig we both wrestled on. I remember that.
Brilliant.
Good dude. So it would be cool if I got to mix it up with him. You never know, it's a tournament, so that could happen. But either way, last time I was out that way. I did have some great matches. One that sticks out is what's his name? Chris Brooks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Had a really good match with him. I see him, he's over in Japan now. It was
Yes,
funny. He kind of went
yeah.
to kind of went to Japan right after I was there, and then like I was debating signing a contract over there, and then I saw he went there and signed one. Then I saw him once in the States, and I was like, hey, I noticed you're doing your thing over there. I know it's pretty cool. Good guy. Uh, and he's real tight with one of my Japanese buddies over there, Masa Takanashi, who's
Hmm.
probably one of my favorite dudes over there. So I really bonded with him when I was there. But yeah, so PCW is the other England dates. If I'm missing one, I'm so sorry. I don't even have you have my phone. It's on a tripod, so I
Yeah,
can't help you.
exactly that. Yeah,
Um, so yeah, but I'm coming out that way. Keep an eye out. I'll get it all on social media one of these days, and hopefully those people are advertising it too. And hopefully somebody wants to see us. I mean, hey, look, if you don't want to see me, go see the face of the NWA, Natalia Markova, because I'll say this to anybody if you don't know who she is. By the way, just won the what is that? The Oceanic, I think it is, championship there on the Jericho Cruise, first
yeah.
ever women's champion. So she's a woman
Nice.
of every first steel cage match in NWA history for women, first Jericho Cruise Championship, women's winner, whatever you want to call it, Oceanic. I don't know. I mean, she's a lady of many firsts, and she's got a million other title belts. And as far as I'm concerned, and I think the company agrees, she's the face of the NWA and the women. So she's maybe they don't.
She'll,
Kenny Page is the champion, so
she'll
they
get that
might say
Burke
that. That's
someday. I have no doubt she'll get the Burke one day.
yeah. I mean, whether she does or she doesn't, she's still an incredible wrestler. So
Mhm.
it's fun to wait and see. But it's like you said, just while we're on that again, the women of the NWA
Mhm.
is
So
and
good.
has always been in the modern era of this the strength of the company. And that's not a slight to any of us guys on the roster, but the Page sisters and Natalia and I mean I'm not gonna say her name every one, so you get the idea. But all those there's so many more in that women's division that are so good,
Yeah.
and it is special. And it's funny because it's even gotten tapped into a little bit, and some of those people went on to other places, and somehow we still managed to push out even more talent. And I think that's a credit to Jazz. Again, Carneyland kind of touched on it, but Jazz is phenomenal, and she has a very good vision of how things should go. And I think she's easy to work with, and then so is the rest of the female roster. So when people get integrated into it, they kind of catch on and assimilate quickly, and they get the vibe of what we're doing, and it really works. And so it's the strength of the company. It's something special. And Natalia Markova is special. And if you haven't seen her, you should come. And if you're going to see her in person, not in England. This is her first time out of all the billion of countries she's wrestled in. Their first time in England. So, and I know she's excited about it. So I highly recommend. She's well worth the purchase of a ticket just to see her match alone. It's always going to get the special chance and all that. I mean, she's just that good. It's just a fact. She's a psycho. So
Yeah.
that's what you get.
That is and she enough leaves those kicks in as well. Jesus. My goodness gracious me. That's for
She's
sure. Although, coincidentally, you're on the one in Colchester. There's a guy there synonymous with wrestling over here right now, Tate Mayfair's, who's
okay.
on that show. Now, there's one you need to look at. He was in, I know
Awesome.
that he went to AEW. I know he went to Uganda. He's on the cusp of somewhere else in another company that's
Wait,
doing some
Uganda?
fine.
Is that those aren't
Yeah.
that wasn't, is that where the people wrestle in the dirt ring or
Yeah.
whatever?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He went out there.
What? He went over there? Oh,
Yeah.
that's
And he's
awesome.
also I know
That
this
lunatic.
this will go out too late, but this will he's also debuting in the promotion I work for this coming weekend, going for the World Championship. I don't know if he's going to win it, but he'll be.
What promotion is that? Tell me. I
It's
don't know.
called Ignite Wrestling. That's the promotion
Oh,
that I
night.
do.
I've actually heard of them. Yeah, I know over there.
Ah,
I think I talked to them once about coming over years ago, but yeah.
no, okay. Well, but
They
make
didn't
sure
book me. So you know
next
what?
time, just
You know
come talk
what?
to me. We'll get that. We'll get that
I'm
happening.
just kidding. I'm playing. I gotta say, man, I'm so blessed these days. I don't need to be booked anywhere, and that's amazing because
Mm.
I like my schedule's just insane, and it sounds, I guess, pretentious to say it, but I'm just like, wow, I feel so blessed having climbed up from essentially nothing in wrestling to like, wow, my schedule's full and I don't need any bookings and I don't need to ask for any bookings. And I think when a wrestler gets to that level, it's kind of something you just finally sit back and say, like, all right, I can just focus on being good at what I do. And that's a relief to not have to be like, hey, and I've never been one to really do that, but you know how wrestlers are. They're always like, hey, I'm your best buddy. Hey, how you doing? They're like, did you watch that cool show? How's the weather out there? By the way, can I get booked? You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
always an ulterior motive.
That's it.
I never really did that, but I mean, I know the feeling and I understand why. And
Yeah.
it's not, it's such a hard life, it's like somebody's like, oh, I watch wrestling. Like, speaking of wrestling, like, this guy here, he
You know what's
wrestles.
coming.
So
Uh, B, as we wrap up, and I always give you this, so no pressure at all. The final question of the show, Fee, is always yours. So go and hit Brian with your final question.
All right, so I decided we weren't going to go down the pizza route or anything this time. What's your toppings? Because quite often that's a. But obviously, the roster in NWA is quite wide. There's lots of different kind of age ranges, lots of new faces. You've got a lot of vets there. We're kind of still at the start of 2025. Who is your one person on the roster, contracted or not, that is your one to watch for this year? That's obviously not yourself.
no, I wouldn't say me anyway. You know what? think yeah, I think about it in terms of who's going to have the most growth and like just going to really raise an eyebrow with a mix of ability and whatever as to who's actually on this roster steadily. Like, so if I was just throwing a name out there, I think I'm going to go with Hunter Drake.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm going to go with him. I think based on those things you said, he's young and he's talented, and we haven't seen most from him. So it's
That's
like, that alone is gonna whatever. But I mean, it is a tough question, and again, like it's not about like who I'm buddies with or anything. There's just a lot of guys there that are we haven't seen a lot of them yet. Like
yeah.
they're just coming in, and they're just like, hey, I'm here every show. Like this is I'm part of the roster. So the younger ones like that, there's a handful, but he stands out to me. But there's a handful of guys that are like, wow. Um, I would look for a decent year from him where you're like, oh, he's kind of making waves. But you know, and I say all that, I got to give credit where credit's due, man. One guy that to me could somehow still continue to peak to a new level is Carson Drake.
Oh, yep.
Oh,
Maybe,
what am I obsessed with
maybe.
the Drakes? Hunter Drake, Carson Drake. Everybody's name's Drake. I just realized that when I say it, but man, Carson, come on, that guy. I gotta say he's good. I've wrestled with a handful of times, and I mean, like, what an entertainer. Like he's good, man.
He's a character.
I mean, I feel like I would watch him like do anything. He's just so entertaining to me, cracks me up. So, and I think again, it's hard to be that balance of like comedy and at the same time, like to me, he's like if you mixed the $1 Million Man with like I don't know. I mean, this is not inaccurate, but if it like the two genres, if you're like $1 Million Man and Santino Marella, and you get Carson Drake, and he's so good as a wrestler too, and he's
Secret
so
love
young.
child.
You know what I mean? Like in some way. So he's just the dude's awesome. So and they're not brothers, they're not related. So any one of the Drakes, keep your eye on. That's my pick.
Nice.
Uh, so that's what I think. We got a lot of good things going, man. I mean, I don't want to sit here and I keep gushing about the NWA, but it really is. I just want to say, from a personal standpoint, it finally feels like in wrestling I found a home. And sometimes for better or worse. Because I definitely went through my share of stuff there already. And it just, you start to zoom out of all that and you just say, like, look around the people, and you don't got to be everybody's best friend. And some people you are best friends with. And you just, it feels like, you don't want to say it's like a family, but it sounds corny and cliche, but it's like, you start looking around. I always wondered how when you look at the old legends and like they're somehow they're all so like almost teary-eyed looking at each other as the time goes by. And you start to realize the more you work with them and the more time you spend and you see the little things that happen in their lives, people get hurt, people come back, people get married, people get divorced. People have kids, people, all these little life things that come into it. And all of a sudden it's, they're showing up at your show. You're seeing all this while you're working. You start to develop even not just the bonds, you just start to develop the familiarity with them. So then you kind of become attached and you just kind of realize like this is your place. So to me, it really feels like it's my place. And it'll be funny in 6 months when I'm burying the shit out of it on the internet afterwards. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't. But I'm saying, but it feels like that, right? You'd be like, 6 months ago, this guy was like, feels like a family. Feels like I found a home. That I'm on the thing. I'm like, that's the worst company that it ever was. They're a train wreck. But I would never do that. It's just not my personality. But I'm always just too honest. Like, I mean, if I'll definitely say negative things, but uh, you know, I would never take back what I'm saying about what I'm saying right now because it might be more special than people realize. There's some fans out there or know-it-alls that think that this is just like some indie fed. It's not. We're a major company and we're built like one. And so all these things that I'm saying and feeling are like I don't think I've had an experience like this in any other place because I never stuck around for any amount of time at this level. So it's just really cool. Like I'm really grateful and it's just a really good thing.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing
Awesome.
what's next in 2025. But Fee, just quickly, as we wrap up now, you've just been with JR. What's next for you coming up now?
What's next? This weekend, I'm not actually working. I don't have any shows, but I will be at ICW to see Tom Latimer defend his NWA World Heavyweight Championship against Aaron Echo. So that's in Glasgow on Sunday.
Wow.
I am MCing on Thursday night for Premier British Wrestling,
Hey.
which should be fun. And then next weekend it's actually WrestleCon in Manchester.
Oh,
So
for the love of wrestling.
for the love of wrestling, I have a
Oh,
hotel booked. I don't know if I'm going to go yet, but I have a room. I might head down to Manchester. We'll see what happens.
you might as well.
Yeah.
I want to say also, man, how fantastic of a wrestler Tom Latimer is.
Oh, so
What a
much love for
treat.
that man. So I've
Yeah,
known
he's the
Tom for
best.
years from the scene in the UK. So all the love. When he won that championship belt, I was like, oh, I nearly, yeah, I got quite
But
emotional watching that
But
one.
he's a freak in the sense that you look at him and he's as big as he is and whatever. You forget Tom Latimer can jump up on the top rope and do a moonsault.
I
Like
know, it's
he can
nuts.
do it all. He can do it
Absolutely
all.
nuts.
So he is unbelievable in the ring. Like he is severely underrated as an actual wrestler. It's insane to me. And even if maybe people don't, you just don't ever hear him brought up like that. And it's like, no, Tom is disgustingly good in the ring.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
And
and
disgustingly tanned as well.
that literally is disgusting. Tan is the darkest, reddest tan of all time, like a hot dog. He's rivaling, old school Hulk Hogan in the hot dog tan department. Probably not the healthiest, but hey, the things we do for wrestling, he's fantastic though. But yeah, and I want to say to you guys, honestly, thank you for the support. Thanks for airing this stuff, and thanks for uh, you know helping support the company and spread awareness. And the last thing I want to say, unless you got something else to ask me, is you asked me about all these things in 2025. Well, I'm going to make a prediction. I am going to predict that this is the biggest year of the Lightning One era, Billy Corgan owned NWA. I would be willing to bet a lot on it. So all I can say to anyone is the best is yet to come. Stay tuned, and there's going to be a lot of aha and I told you so moments. So
No,
exciting.
We
love to hear that. That's
Yes, we
awesome.
will. We will keep. Obviously, we will keep supporting it every week on this channel. And before we do go, I can say
Hey,
I
wait,
can
I'm
actually say
stopping you
this.
again.
Go
Adam,
on.
stop. I don't want to interrupt you, but I just forget everything. I want to take one more second because I dragged you guys all the way through this interview with my big mouth and talking. But what I really kind of touched on but didn't brag is let's talk about 1 second, the last year and a half, what the
Mhm.
crowd has been like at the
Yes.
NWA. And that's because I'm the national promoter and I've helped push things in the right direction with what I know. And I'm saying so proud of that. And I'm saying like, we were at a point where there was people trying to put nails in the coffin, and
Yep.
we've somehow gone to that to every show since has been legitimately either sold out or like packed out to a ridiculous level. I would call it if I was judging myself, I've yet to hit anything other than a home run. And I think it's a credit to the whole company and the team around me and the everyone putting their egos aside or whatever and just opening the books and saying, hey, let's put the work in, wrestlers included. So I think that is a huge thing I want to thank everybody for, on a public forum. And I want to say like one of those things where guess what? Everybody was wrong because ever since there were certain people trying to just drive the spike through our heart, we were like, oh, by the way, actually, we're going to start booking the biggest crowds ever, bigger than when some of the people who ran their mouth were even there. So I love that. And again, it starts with people like you, so that's why it reminded me. But please go on and say what you were going to say. I'll
Oh
shut my
no.
mouth.
First things first is let's people in America that are going to keep going to NWA because you are going to miss some great stuff if you don't go. Keep those crowds coming in. We love to see those big healthy crowds at NWA. But I need to congratulate the Hit in the Turnbuckle. What a new #1 contender for the Hit in the Turnbuckle champion. Aluna, someone else actually would have a really good match with Markova, actually, funnily enough. Aluna, she won the championship at the weekend. She won the opportunity to take on my champion, Mark True. That's coming up in May at the Last Stand. There's also going to be a Last Man Standing match, hence the name, for the Last Stand. May the 18th over in Shenley Road in Borehamwood at Ignite. Go and check that out at 96th event price. What's that, sorry?
So let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's go and check that out on there. Coming up on this channel soon, Rob Van Dam will be coming in to say hello in a lot of ways. And potentially Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner, will be coming on. God knows what that's going to be like.
That'll be fun.
That's going to be.
Love it. Want to say Sabu trained me? Sabu trained RVD. That's about the only 2 people he's ever trained in his life. So there you go. How about
He's
that?
done a very good job, to be fair.
He did a much better job with RVD, but that was a lot of years before. Hey, I try.
And don't forget, everyone, to watch NWA every week on X. It's at 6:05 Eastern. It's at 11:05 p.m. UK time. Like Fee with her cup of tea every Tuesday night on the NWA X channel at NWA. But for Bryan Idol, from Fiona Lochran, and from me, Adam Cousins, goodbye and good night.